Okay, I think it's a good point to start getting started. Okay, so my name is Avni Dyer. In case you're new today, I am an educational consultant at Payton. We have three more members of my team here with us: Ethan, Jeremy, and Sarah. Today, Sarah will be leading our conversation and moderating with our panelists. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please feel free to put them into the chat, and we will definitely try to get those questions out to our panelists within the hour we have. Okay, Sarah, it's all you.
Thanks. I'd also throw in closed captioning is available. You can click on that live transcript button on your Zoom menu. There's also information about the closed captioning in the chat window right now. We are recording the session for those that may have to step away or aren't able to be with us here today because we just know that the conversation is going to be wonderful. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our panelists. So I'll do a quick introduction and I'll turn it over to them to give us a little bit about how they became part of our big CS for all PA family or CSNPA family. And I guess I'd start off with, first off, Sydney. Sydney is currently a student at Penn State and she's studying biomedical engineering and is on a pre-med track. We're excited to have her and hear from her perspective as the founder and co-president of Girls Who Code the World, a nonprofit organization that mentors young girls in STEM-related fields right here in Pennsylvania and beyond. Sydney, would you please introduce yourself and maybe give us just a few sentences on where you are in your CS journey and how you got here?
Yeah, hi everyone. It's so great to be here. So Girls Code the World is a nonprofit organization that provides opportunities and resources for young girls age 8 through 12. And I think that my journey through computer science has been really eye-opening as far as exploring different ways that STEM has applications within technology and how they're all connected to each other. And I've been loving being able to incorporate computer science into all these different fields and being able to turn that right back around to my community and share that with the girls that we work with in Girls Code the World. And I'm still in school, which is really interesting because I'm learning more and also sharing that as an educator within Girls Code the World as well.
Awesome. So Sydney wears a few different hats or perspectives. So if you've got questions, I see there that Judd's also dropped the link in for her organization there. Our next panelist is from across the state, the Allegheny region. So we'd like to introduce Jana, who's been a teacher at Avonworth School District for 6 years. She's been teaching computer science and digital media in grades 3 through 6, and her district has been participating in our PA Smart targeted grant program to expand computer science opportunities. Jana, would you give us a little snippet of where you are in your CS journey or how you got here?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm very passionate about computer science, specifically CS for all students. I've really learned that CS can be a means of self-expression for our students. And it's so versatile that it really opens itself up for creative learning, ideas, and projects. So specifically this year, I've been working with special education and incorporating computer science activities into their world. And it's been really fun. We've done adaptive mice that we've made through Makey Makeys. We've done sensory bags where we've learned about inputs and outputs. And we've also created artwork with Spheros. So lots of fun things, engaging activities for the students. And I find that it really builds their confidence and also their collaboration skills. So I'm excited to continue that work and continue to spread the CS education in our schools and beyond.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Our third panelist is Dr. Jamie Payton. Jamie is the chair of the Department of Computer and Information Sciences at Temple University. She's also the director of the STARS Computing Corps, which is a mission to broaden participation from underserved populations in the field of computing. And I have to personally say, we really appreciate Dr. Payton's engagement in some of our PA Smart programming and helping us consider what we can do for educators across the state of Pennsylvania. Dr. Payton, your story is always fabulous to hear. Could you give us a little snippet there?
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks for having me today. I'm really excited to be here and to be a part of CS for All in PA. As Sarah mentioned, I'm the chair of the Department of Computer Information Sciences at Temple University and a faculty member there. When I first started out as a high school student, I had no idea that I would be interested in computing. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and I actually went to a vocational technical school to take paralegal classes. And I saw some students in a programming course across the hallway, and they were all high-fiving each other, excited about what they had created. And that's what sparked my interest in computer science. And I went on to become a professor of computer science after being involved in research, and have really been focused and committed and passionate about broadening participation of Black, Hispanic, Latinx, and women students in computing, and really focusing on offering opportunities for economic opportunity and mobility through computer science, and also trying to make sure that the systems that we create in the future are created by the people who will use them, and they're inclusive and sort of represent the cultures and the use cases that we would all appreciate. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
And lastly, our final panelist is someone that we're always very pleased to hear what he's up to, running around the state, figuratively and literally. Mr. Judd Payton has been the special consultant to the Secretary of Education on STEM for the past few years. And he has been helping to support and design initiatives and programs to support statewide math, science, and multi-tiered systems of support for computer science and STEM education. Before that, he spent 14 years serving on the Harrisburg City School District. And if you ever want to pick his brain about all things environmental science, he's your guy. Judd, pivoting from environmental science to computer science, how did you find yourself here?
Well, thanks, Sarah. And I think that's a really good question, actually. So the computer science journey, started when I started working at the department under former Secretary Rivera, and we went across the state and started listening to stakeholders. And one of the things that we learned early on when we started listening to the field, whether it was educators, caregivers, students, workforce partners, what we heard was that one, computer science was something that teachers were really enjoying teaching, and that learners, like the biggest problem for those educators, that it was hard to stop learners from wanting to learn about computer science, and that it was often the class that learners were most excited about attending. And so we really heard it from the teachers, and then from the workforce side, we were hearing that computer science was what was going to be driving our economy of the future. And that, there was, at that time, there was roughly about 25,000 unfilled computer programming software development jobs in the Commonwealth. And we were really trying to figure out how we could drive talent to filling those openings. And as we fast forward today, we still have a lot of workforce opportunities and unfilled positions. And it seemed like as we continued to learn from Pennsylvanians around why computer science mattered, that it really was that opportunity to provide students and learners a pathway to family sustaining wages. And as Jamie so eloquently put, to really be the creators of the world in front of us, and the learners that were the folks that solved the problems. And so, we wanted to set the conditions and do what we could to best make sure that every school or every learner had access to computer science experiences, but more importantly, that we set the conditions so that every learner could be included in those experiences. And I think the folks that we have on the panel today so eloquently speak to that, making sure that learners are included. So that's a little bit about how I got from environmental and ecology to computer science.
Thanks so much, Judd. I'd politely remind folks that are participating in today's meetup. We know that today we have these monthly meetups. Today's a little bit different as far as formatting goes, but there's absolutely still the opportunity to engage with our featured guests Please post questions in the chat window. You can also use the raise hand feature, and we'd be happy to call on our panelists to answer questions that you are dying to hear. And as maybe I wait for some of those questions to come in, oh boy, do I have plenty. Especially considering the last year that we've all lived through, and our experiences have been unique but shared in some ways. I'm curious to hear from the panel how you are still so enthusiastic about computer science, what conversations you're having right now in the moment about computer science, and how you're relaying that value and that passion. Maybe when folks are feeling a little bit overwhelmed or having difficulty envisioning that or sharing that passion that you all have this year and as well before the pandemic. I'll open it up to the panelists.
I can start. I definitely think computer science speakers have helped. I've discussed ways with students to kind of how we can increase computer science engagement. And one of the majority said we should have speakers come in and kind of talk about what they're doing in the field. And so because of that, we've worked with corporations such as Google Pittsburgh. We've worked with groups such as the Society of Women Engineers in order to speak of their careers in computer science. And that interaction has provided a means for students to think about their own career paths and consider opportunities available for them today in CS. So I think that that's been extremely huge this year. And even through virtual learning, something that we were able to incorporate. And it really turned out to be an incredible opportunity for our students.
Thanks, Jana. Other panelists, how are you relaying that energy, that such positivity, and bringing others to the table despite these challenging times, as we've been told so many times over the past year?
Well, I can also share that I think many times we talk about the importance of computer science for solving problems of societal interest that have social impact. I think, people talk about this as the equity ethic. There's a great book by Ebony McGee called Black, Brown, and Bruised, and it's about diversifying STEM. And a lot of what she talks about applies to computer science. In particular, students that are Black and Hispanic talk about interest in computer science and STEM fields primarily from a perspective of wanting to use those skills and knowledge to address social issues and to give back to their communities and to solve important problems. So those are things that excite me. And I think that's one thing that we can use to excite others as well, is to frame computer science around problem solving, especially important problems. The other thing that I can share is that we conducted this national survey of people in the computing community, which included undergraduate students. And so the results showed that for the undergraduate students who continued to participate in what we called activism using computing knowledge, reported sort of higher sort of sense of belonging and intentions to persist in computing education. So what we're seeing from the data is those kind of approaches are also effective, and they really impact the way students feel. And sometimes the way that students feel can really be an important indicator of success and persistence in educational areas.
One thing I'll say from my own perspective is also the fact that one of the main reasons why we founded Girls Code the World in the first place was to bring application to younger students and show them that application of computer science. And it's not this abstract programming thing. And it's something that I've been experiencing within my own college career and seeing every single day in my classes about how computer science is connected to medicine and biology and chemistry, which is really bridging kind of like two of my strongest interests. And so I think that it's been really interesting for me to bring that and stuff that I'm experiencing in the classroom every day to Girls Code the World. And I'm excited to learn about more every day and share that with other girls as well.
Sydney really and Jamie, Dr. Payton definitely touched on two critical elements of why we want to continue to champion the efforts, and that idea of the merging and the integration across fields. You know, we just are going through this pandemic, and if it wasn't for computer science, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to have a vaccine in the matter of, you know, a year, and be looking at the through the tunnel towards what the future is without a pandemic. And we also think about the social emotional health and the mental health of our learners. And one of the things that we heard early on during the pandemic was this deep need to get learners back to the classroom. And I say classroom, virtual or in person, but just to get them excited again. And one of the things that we heard from teachers was that computer science experience, or giving kids an opportunity to solve the real world problem through computer science, it was bringing kids back to the table. It's one of the reasons why Sarah and her team have been so influential in launching something like Build Fly Code, and bringing computer science merged with drone education to educators, even though we were in the midst of a pandemic, to figure that out and how to do it virtually. So, you know, if there's those sparks of creativity and excitement that we can still bring back to learners, whether they're early learners, middle learners, or high school and college learners, they still really love to solve problems, and they like Sydney's doing right now as a proprietor of Girls Code the World. She's changing the world, and they want to do that. So let's give them the tools to make that happen. And that's what really keeps me excited and wanting to champion computer science and STEM education across the state, because it does seem to be that spark that keeps learners excited and keeps them, you know, maybe turning on Zoom in the morning and making sure that we get to school.
So pivoting from that a little bit, I'm wondering, you know, having that kind of that value, what's a question or a push, a polite push you would give to people who are wondering, okay, I hear you, it's important, it's valuable. What do I do now? Where do I go? Where do I, whether or not folks were really passionate and their plate got really full over the past year, or maybe they're new to our little CSforAllPA family. What are some words of encouragement or places you would encourage folks to start at in their journey for becoming a CS advocate and supporting learners of all ages, like Judd mentioned?
I would say to kind of wherever you're at in the CS process, start to build your own kind of personalized network, and don't be afraid to fail. I've utilized tons of free online resources to get started. I've used Hello Ruby website, which has great content for learning networks in the internet and how computers work. Code.org for Hour of Code activities and CS curriculum, and Common Sense Media for digital citizenship curriculum K to 12. And definitely leverage social media. There's so many wonderful professionals out there that you're able to connect with and learn from. Personally, I followed her Hello World, which is a software engineer, and she works for Microsoft, and she has great content for successful women in the tech industry. And I also follow Black Girls Code and Girls Who Code for increasing CS opportunities for our girls. And just staying current with CS Today, Remake Learning, CS for All, CSDA, all are great, wonderful happenings in CS news around the region and beyond. So I would say that there's so many people out there that are willing to kind of help you with your goals. So you just kind of need to take that initiative and start to build your network. And I think you'll really see how it can take off pretty quickly after that.
I think Jana said it so well. I don't know that I have much to add. I loved your list of resources and really echo the don't be afraid to fail and to don't think that you have to create everything from scratch. I think those are two excellent pieces of advice. Just hang in there. It's been a tough year. And we just appreciate so much that you're doing for the learners that you're engaging with. And a couple of other resources that you may be interested in would be the National Science Foundation funds CS for All researcher practitioner partnerships. And there's a listing at CSforAll.org. You can find the RPP for CS page. They have ways you can get involved even more deeply with local efforts and a collection of resources that you could use, including some of the curricular items that Jana mentioned. These are even more sort of, I guess, cutting edge at the forefront of research that often do things like integrating physical activity with computer science learning or integrating computer science into core subjects in K through 5. Those resources are sometimes a little bit harder to find, but CSforAll.org and RPP for CS are two resources where you can find some of those more sort of intricate, I guess, and specialized resources.
Yeah, I would say definitely don't be intimidated by like the depth and kind of breadth of computer science for sure. I think that you don't have to be an extremely intricate programmer to bring computer science to your career or work community. You know, there are students who major in marketing and then suddenly they're coding websites for their job once they go out into the workplace and they've never had any experience within computer science. But technology has progressed so much that computer science really is accessible for people now, and you don't have to be completely familiar with Python and Java to bring that to your job. And if you're an educator, learning ways that computer science has fit into the careers that you teach about or the field that you teach about, whether that is, you know, marketing and bringing computer science there, or biomedical engineering, which is what I learn in university, and how that, you know, has integrated into the field of biomedical engineering beyond. You don't have to know maybe fully how it works, but maybe just kind of giving some reference and having people begin thinking about that when they begin learning about those fields. So, yeah.
Cindy, I'm sorry, Judd, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure. And I have to, I have to admit, we don't always have the opportunity to connect a broader audience with folks like Sydney. So I do, as much as she'll let me, I will personally spotlight you. Sydney, folks are always interested in kind of your journey and how you and a classmate created Girls Code the World. I'm curious if you if you'd share a little bit about maybe some of the systems or the things that helped you feel like you were in a position to do that. So if educators or others are like, oh, well, I really care, but how do I get more of my students to do what Sydney's doing or feel like they're capable? So is there anything out of your journey as far as what supports you had, and vice versa? What supports maybe did you not have that you and your colleagues had to kind of scrap together and do on your own?
Yeah, absolutely. So two resources that we've definitely incorporated to all of our curriculum that we've developed is code.org and Scratch. Both of them just have so many tutorials and real world application examples within those sites that we've really utilized. Another thing is that we definitely took a lot of time to reach out to, you know, our parents' friends and our teachers and our professors and ask them, how do you use computer science? And it's truly, honestly, really amazing to hear about the wide application of it, for sure. And, maybe they just say one sentence that was really inspiring to me or Mina, and we take that and, look up a little bit more about it and figure out how we can incorporate 10 minutes of that into a lesson plan. And we're obviously not skilled educators. We don't have a degree in education, but we learned kind of how to develop a teaching plan and like a scope and sequence pedagogy, and learning about different teaching methods that were really interesting to learn about as we are being taught ourselves in the classroom. And I think that we also had some really amazing teachers in high school who were definitely willing to connect us with different resources. One thing that has also been really helpful is through our grant search, we've been making some really valuable partnerships with corporations such as Johnson & Johnson, who actually have resources online, free resources online that they want to provide for students like us or other educators in the area who want to share not just computer science, but other aspects of STEM and incorporate them into their lessons as they grow. So I think it's definitely a learning and growing experience. And we definitely aren't afraid to reevaluate lessons after we run through them the first time and say, that didn't work, or maybe the girls that we were teaching didn't quite see the connection as strongly as we wanted them to see it. So thinking about how we can improve after we teach those lessons has been really valuable as well.
Judd, I'm so sorry. I know I interrupted you. Did you want to circle back on an idea, or did you have something to pivot to Sydney? No?
No.
Okay. I guess another question, like broadly speaking, for the whole panel is, and I know we've been talking about like where we've been at mentally and even physically over the past year. What do you see as far as the evolution for the field of computer science and computer science education in the near future, maybe in the next year or even a little bit further out? And maybe what do you see, but also what do you hope for? Maybe those don't match up because of conditions or systems in place.
I would like to see CS incorporated into more content areas, as we've kind of talked about. Sometimes you can see computer science kind of be siloed in an educational setting. And I think we really need to see that starting to integrate into other areas. If we look at what's happening with CS career fields today, we can see that it's across all different content areas and real world application. So I really feel like we need to start increasing computer science opportunities. And my hope for the future is that we'll have a diverse group of tech leaders that better represent our country as a whole in order to close kind of that equity gap that we see in CS happening today. And the earlier we introduce students to computer science, I think the more opportunities they will experience, and they will continue to build and develop for their futures. I also hope to see more CS professional learning opportunities for teaching professionals, and not just those interested in computer science. And also, I'd like to see CS education taught for elementary educators at the college level as well, and kind of sprinkle that CS ed just like confetti all over the place.
Dr. Payton and Mr. Pittman, I know you were scribbling mental notes down from Jana, and I bet they match up a bunch of your pre-existing notes and ideas. Judd, I pivot to you to think about that and maybe pivot off of some of the things that Jana said as far as what you know is forthcoming in the near future with CS and CS education in Pennsylvania. But maybe areas that we're really, really hoping to grow as well.
Yeah. No, Jana really like contextualized the hopes and dreams so well, I think what we know is going to be happening in the near term is, there are going to be more professional learning opportunities at the IUs or the intermediate units, and there are going to be more professional learning opportunities through the team at Payton. We know that we're going to continue to support those educators that are looking to get certified. So if you're one of those 712 educators out there that's like, should I take the praxis? Shouldn't I take the praxis? Is it something that I should consider? I would take full advantage of it now, because we have the opportunity to support you with professional learning and technical assistance around the content for the praxis exam. And we can also support you financially once you pass the praxis with a reimbursement, and then support you financially with the filing fee for the licensure. And those opportunities are finite. They're only going to be here for a little while. And our goal is, by 2022, 2023 year, we're hopeful that we can have 500 certified CS 712 educators in the field in Pennsylvania. It's a pretty lofty goal, but we got 25, and those 25 educators we should celebrate. But the scaffolds and the pathways to get there, the opportunity to take a We Teach course, for example, through our partners at Payton for free is only going to be here so long. So take advantage of it. The opportunity to get that relief, the praxis and certification relief, take advantage of it. And then, we are going to be looking at additional computer science related grants through PA Smart, and we're hoping to expand the program that Sarah and her team are leading, called Build Fly Code, where there's that integration of computer science into other spaces. And we're still going to commit to those early learners. I think Jana said it really well. We need to start early, and it needs to be integrated as we look at the workforce. We just had a call the other day with Amazon, and the number of opportunities in the cloud and the jobs that are open in that space. That's the future of work, and that work is going to cross-cut every industry cluster that we have. And I think back like 2016, I remember at a CS4All Summit in St. Louis talking about, in Pennsylvania, we had our first robotic apple picker, and we needed folks in the orchards to be able to code the robot. That same thing is happening in every aspect of our economy, whether it's agriculture and industrialized farming, if it's the forest products industry, if it's the medical field, if it's education. You're going to continue to see this integration of that skill set and the need for it. So if there's things that we can do to set the context for educators to be brave and be vulnerable and give those opportunities to their learners, we want to do that. And I think this team is the folks that you want to reach out to. And we're going to be committed to sticking with that journey as long as we can. So take advantage of it while it's here.
Dr. Payton, go for it. I know you've got some ideas on this too.
Yeah, I just love what Jana and Judd both said so much. Looking forward to a future in which we have equitable access to inclusive computer science education by certified teachers in our schools. That's a great thing for us to aspire to, and I think we're on a good path to get there. Judd mentioned several supports for teachers to gain professional development opportunities and develop content and pedagogical knowledge for teaching computer science. Those are great opportunities. I'm going to mention two additional opportunities that are specific opportunities that you get engaged in, but also sort of exemplify how universities are trying to support these efforts as well, in partnership with Payton and the state and other organizations. At Temple University, we've created a graduate certificate in computer science instruction that aligns with the CS K-12 CS framework and also the ISTE standards, the ISTE standards. And it prepares teachers at the start to teach computer science principles and other courses that have these sort of core curricula that are being embraced across the state. And it also prepares educators to take the praxis exam. But the great thing there is they also earn academic credentials. And that's one example of these types of programs that are being developed for in-service teachers that can lead to preparation for the praxis if you feel like you need and want that type of academic experience. The We Teach course is really amazing, and I know that the Payton team has put supports around building community for teachers and building coaching for teachers around that. So I would really strongly encourage you to consider that if it's an option for you. Lots of sort of curriculum that you can adopt as a result of participating in that program as well. And then the other thing that I'll mention is that I'm part of a CS4All researcher practitioner partnership. And one of the things that we're trying to do there is not to tell educators, these are the solutions that we think you should adopt, but to have true partnerships where we're both identifying challenges together and we're identifying promising approaches and studying them together, developing professional development opportunities for teachers that work for teachers and that do lead to equitable outcomes. So we're doing that through a project funded by NSF at Temple University, at Drexel University, and other universities in Philadelphia. I'm sure that there are universities in your local area if you would be interested in getting engaged with those kind of efforts that you could connect with. Looking longer term, there is a sort of bill on the table that would result in a lot more investment in computer science through the National Science Foundation. And some of that will be focused on education and specifically looking ahead on AI education, which is closely connected, I'm sure you know, to computer science education. And so I think a future challenge will be looking at how do we integrate computer science concepts and computing concepts into the early grades, K through 5, and then how do we start working towards those data science and AI kind of concepts in the upper grades. So definitely we have a good start for developing a pathway now for computer science. I see in the next 10 years, we're going to be looking at also trying to devise a pathway that would include AI education for students as well.
Jamie, our worlds collide. For folks that are live with us or are watching this after it's been posted to the Payton YouTube playlist, we are putting together a special work group with multiple stakeholder representatives specifically on those questions that Jamie just raised of, as we continue our journey for expanding computer science, how do we think about where AI fits in, especially given its complexities and the way that it is permeating the world around us. So if you are really interested in artificial intelligence, please reach out to our team and we'd be happy to get you involved in some of the preliminary work that we're doing there. I have a question. I'm sorry, go ahead, Judd.
I was just going to say, like, Jamie sparked something around this idea of data sciences and like that space. And it made me think about some of the job numbers. And I think just to contextualize like where we're talking about and what kind of opportunities we're talking about for our learners, the average salary in 2021 for a job related to the cloud was in Pennsylvania was about $100,000. That's an amazing opportunity for learners to access. And if you're talking about like in the world of the AWS cloud, some of those jobs, the entry level job is starting at $80,000. And just in the last February 2020 through January 2021, there was 152,000 different job postings in Pennsylvania related to data science and or cloud skills. So they went across a lot of different spaces, but it is an amazing opportunity. And, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we weren't talking about that job posting. And now that's the kind of job posting we're talking about. So when we think 2 or 3 years from now, what Jamie's sharing around that artificial intelligence, it is going to be that kind of level.
So I'd like to, and for more about just the sheer numbers that Judd's able to spit out, if you're like, oh my goodness, what? Again, take a look at our shared notes. We'll drop the link back in the chat window to our shared notes doc. We are putting in links to all of the resources that the panelists and I have been referring to. But I'd like to segue in our last little chunk of time. We are so grateful for our panelists' time and energy. So I want to give them the opportunity to make a plea, make a pitch. What in your work with computer science, panelists, do you need? What support, what help, what could folks that are with us today or are watching this recording, what could they help you with so that you can continue being such a champion and advocate for computer science? What could they offer you as far as support, input? What would you ask of people to keep you going?
If I don't go first, then Jana will say something amazing and Sydney will say something amazing and I'll have nothing to say. So I'll go first. I think it maybe sounds counterintuitive, but I would love to know about your challenges. When I hear about your challenges and what you think may address them and what wouldn't work to address them, I would love to continue to be a partner, to work together to solve those, to find out more about those challenges and to find some solutions that work in the local context. So that's one thing that would keep me going, just continuing to be engaged with educators, directly in the classroom, as well as district administrators, leaders, nonprofit organizers, working together as an ecosystem to support moving computer science forward for all students.
I think one thing just specifically for Girls Code the World is we do specifically serve girls and also socioeconomically disadvantaged communities and primarily marginalized communities as well. And one thing we really aim to do is bring in role models for them and also people that are in positions of leadership within computer science and STEM, because having those role models and having people that those girls can say, I want to be them one day, is really, really powerful for them. And we are constantly looking for people to bring in to Girls Code the World, to act as speakers, act as mentors. I've also been learning a lot about how I feel like academia has really trended in a really good direction as far as making computer science and STEM more equitable for various different communities. But I think that especially within the corporate worlds, that is definitely not quite there yet. And I've been hearing from various different people who came to speak in that the drop off after the first 5 years for women and marginalized communities within those primarily male dominated fields, especially computer science, but also in engineering and those other hardcore science classes, it's because the women don't see themselves in those positions of project management and in leadership and making the decisions for the company. And so they don't see a lot of growth for their career. And so we are looking at Girls Code the World definitely to bring in people who are in those positions and can speak to what obstacles they faced and how they were able to get over them. And any advice they have or any level of mentorship they can provide to the girls at Girls Code the World is extremely powerful for us.
Yes, I agree. I think building a CS network, and it goes both ways, that we can learn from corporations, we can learn from businesses as teachers, as educators, and they can learn from us as well. And this year, I've really tried to focus too on incorporating computer science into different areas so that every student can feel like this is my area. And this is where I feel most comfortable, and this is where I'm most engaged. And that may mean doing after school activities. That may be a Minecraft club, or that may be a Girls Who Code club. Or in our district, we have a focus period where kids can elect to participate in a computer science activity. And so I think being able to build as many opportunities as we can as educators to expose students to a variety of how CS can be incorporated in all these other areas is important too.
Judd, given your unique perspective, kind of straddling the education and the political spheres. What are some what supports do you think that we as a greater CSNPA community need? And what can folks do to keep the work moving forward? As you mentioned earlier, some things that are in place now, as with many things, are temporary and won't last forever. So how can we continue the great work and expanding computer science? What can folks do?
You know, I think that's always like the $100,000 question. But there are small things, and they may seem like I think it's really about, if you have the opportunity to make sure you lend your voice, because the one thing that we're committed to is stakeholder engagement and bringing your voice closer to that program policy creation. So if there ever are any opportunities from your intermediate units, from national organizations, from your local CSTA chapter, from the department, to lend your voice, take advantage of it, because we do honestly use the data as much as we often think that people collect it just to collect it, to check a box. It is something that I can tell you that our teams look at, that informs the direction we are going. And if it wouldn't be for stakeholders, if it wouldn't be for what Jana calls the network, we wouldn't have PA Smart. We wouldn't have CS and PA. We wouldn't have Build Fly Code. We wouldn't have targeted grants. That was built upon the voices of the field and the network that push for that direction. So I think that's one thing, continue to lend your voice. The second thing that like locally to do would be, you know, if you're willing to be vulnerable around inviting folks to your classroom, invite your local school board members to see what you're doing, to understand like, what is computer science? There is a lot of misperceptions. What does computer science look like when I'm trying to teach my kindergartner phonemic awareness or letter recognition or number recognition? So invite folks to see it, to make it real for them, whether it's your local legislator, like your school board level, or if, you know, like a Remake Learning Days event like this or something, a showcase, invite your local lawmaker, because ultimately they are the individuals that determine the funding streams. And the more that they know that that is a valuable asset to you and your community, the more likelihood that they're going to remember, oh, that PA Smart thing, yeah, we should support that. Or all that computer science legislation that's saying that we should have certified educators, yeah, we should support that. So I think the more that you can showcase your own talents in classroom and the more that you can showcase your learners, like let your students take that cool project that they did to measure water quality through some type of computer science related data collection, and let them share that with the world, whether it's local community or local county commissioners, city councils, mayors. That's the way to champion and sort of bridge that divide, because every lawmaker wants to talk about jobs and the economy. And so if we want to best prepare our learners to take advantage of it, this is the space to prepare them and make sure they understand what that is. Like, what does it mean to be somebody in the workforce for computer science? That seems very like maybe opaque right now. And if you can operationalize that for them, then there's a greater likelihood that they will support that. So, you know, share your story and invite folks out to see it. And if you need support doing that, reach out to us and we'll help you do that.
I'm just curious, I'm looking at the time. I'd like to come full circle before Avni has us wrap up. We started off thinking about where you got to now in your CS journey. We've talked about maybe what you're envisioning as far as the future of CS. What's next for you individually, both in your role that you play professionally in computer science, or maybe your personal journey in computer science? Panelists, would you take a few moments and each of you just tell us, like, what's on your immediate radar? What's on your to-do list, maybe over the summer or the next few months? What's your priority?
I could maybe talk a little bit about myself personally, kind of just outside of Girls Code the World, and something I'm hoping to bring back to Girls Code the World as well. But I'm definitely extremely interested in the intersection between medicine, technology, and computing. And so this summer, I have the opportunity to intern at Johnson & Johnson in their biosurgery unit. And what I'll be doing is basically helping them develop like computational models and like those visual models of these internal patches that they use during surgery to stop bleeding. And I just think that that's a really, really interesting connection between those two things and those two fields. And it's definitely something I'd like to incorporate into my career moving forward, and how I can bring computer science to make safer testing and safer modeling in medicine, so that we don't have to have such risky procedures and such risky clinical trials. I know we've seen the ability of technology through the COVID vaccine development, but that's definitely something I'd really like to incorporate into my own career moving forward. So yeah.
Not everybody has to invent a or discover a scientific medical something or other. I just want to tell the panelists, right? Like we're all capable of great things. But Sydney, that is wonderful, and we are so proud of you so far, and we'll continue looking to see where your journey takes you. Other panelists, what's on your immediate radar? What are you passionate about right now? What's something you're working on computer science related?
So for me, I watched the documentary Coded Bias, and I was just so intrigued by it. And so I definitely have some reading material that I'd like to check out this summer. One is Algorithms of Oppression, and the other one is Weapons of Mass Destruction. And I just think that it's so important to kind of reflect on my personal teaching and see how I can kind of tailor to the masses and make sure that I'm including everybody with my instruction. And I think one thing that I've kind of dabbled in this year is universally designed instruction. And so if I'm teaching events and programming, maybe I don't have to do that with a basketball game, because maybe not everyone would be super enthusiastic about creating a basketball game. Maybe it could be through a dance party, or maybe it could be through a digital story, but we're still learning how to use events and programming. And so I think for my personal journey, that's something that I'm interested in, is kind of continuing those universally designed lessons for my students.
That's great, Janet. You mentioned the Algorithms of Oppression book. One of the things I'm excited and I'm working on this summer is every year the STARS Computing Corps it's an organization that I direct. It's a national alliance for broadening participation of underrepresented groups in computing. And we organize an annual research conference called RESPECT. It stands for Research in Equitable and Sustainable Participation in Engineering, Computing, and Technology. And Sophia Noble will be speaking at our conference. The conference is held online, May 23rd through the 27th. The link to the conference is in the chat. We also have a panel of equity fellows from CSTA that are being highlighted, as well as research on some of these researcher practitioner partnerships that I mentioned, and members of CS4All will be presenting as well. So if you're available, I hope that you can attend. There are scholarships available, especially for K-12 educators, so I hope we'll check it out. Beyond that, I'm really excited about preparing a proposal that will extend the STARS Computing Corps Alliance. One of the things that we do is we engage undergraduate students in that sort of realizing their dreams of that equity ethic. A lot of times what students choose to do in our programs are to engage with K-12 educators to assist them in any way that they can in implementing equitable and inclusive CS education in K-12 schools. So a lot of times our students will serve as sort of an unpaid lab assistant to K-12 educators in the local area. We'll also provide some near peer mentoring to K-12 students and so on. We provide them with training and implicit bias and a little bit about pedagogy and help to facilitate the partnerships. So we're looking forward to expanding the impact of that alliance and the scope with new partners. Currently, we have partnerships with 50 colleges and universities across the United States. And those universities and student organizations have partnerships with over 2,000 local organizations, including K-12 schools. So excited about that, looking forward to putting that proposal together, and would invite and welcome anyone who's interested to check out the STARS Computing Core.
And Judd, you want to close us out? What's on your to-do list? What's on?
Well, it sounds like folks are doing a lot of great things. So I think, leaning into the summer is really helping to elevate the 4th annual CS for All Summit. And so that'll be June 21st through June 25th. So we encourage everybody to come out and experience that. And I'm sure the team will share that link. And then also, very hopeful that we'll be able to release another round of PA Smart grants in some way, shape, or form for the field to really take advantage of the opportunity. And then I think finally, long term, we're really hopeful that, in the coming 10 to 12 months, that we have a solid statewide computer science for all plan.
I mean, you said that people are doing great things. Yes, absolutely. And thank you for leading the helm there. Panelists, it has been an honor learning from you and hearing about your journey and your pathways moving forward. I'll turn it back over to Avni in just a moment. As a reminder for folks that are with us live, the shared notes doc is, boy, don't print it because it's getting big. We've been dropping in all those links and things that the panelists have been mentioning. And I'll turn it back over to Avni, who will wrap us up for the day. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, panelists, for being with us.
Thank you. Let me start with a huge thanks to all of the panelists. You guys have given so many resources, and I know the whole point of having so many different types of individuals in this panel was that I was able to get different voices in there, because I think oftentimes as educators, we kind of get stuck in the same resource wheel. So it was great to have such a wide range of individuals here today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I am going to take a little bit more time, and then I promise I will share the attendance link. I swear it won't be too long. So we have family code night tonight. It starts at 6. So if you haven't had an opportunity to do this with your kids yet, it is geared for kids between the ages of K to 5th, 7th grade. I've seen it stretched a little bit to 7th, 8th grade, and it works great. You and your family can learn to code together. So all the links to this is right in the shared notes. We also have the PBS Family Night Engineering. That's going to be airing tomorrow. So it's at 7 p.m. For all of the stations, except for one, which is in the link. I will not say the acronyms because I always mess them up. But that will be happening. And then we have Counselors for Computing and CS and PA Q&A. So this is a question and answer period for our amazing people for the Counselors for Computing. Dana Weil, who's been doing a lot of work with your NC WIT students, she will be there answering questions of why is computing important and how can it be relevant to your students and how can we keep them on that career path or that trajectory. Then finally, as Judd mentioned already, we have our CS for All Summit, which is happening between June 21st and 25th. We're offering synchronous and asynchronous opportunities. And I will drop the full link for the attendance. We really, really appreciate everyone being here. Again, thank you so much to our panelists and to our participants for being here today. We hope you enjoy your night. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.